Imagine an empire so powerful, so vast, and just so feared that its name was whispered with a mix of awe and pure terror all across the ancient world. For centuries, the Neo-Assyrian Empire was the undisputed superpower of its day, a military and cultural giant that seemed absolutely, completely invincible. I mean, at its peak in the 7th century BC, under its last great king Ashurbanipal, Assyria was just colossal. Its reach was staggering. You're talking about an empire that stretched from the mountains of modern-day Armenia all the way down into Egypt and Nubia, and from central Iran clear across to the Mediterranean. It was, without a doubt, the largest, most powerful empire the world had ever seen. And then, poof, in the span of just a few years, it vanished. The whole thing just collapsed. Its great cities were turned into rubble, and its people were scattered to the winds. So that brings us to the big question here. How on earth could something so mighty fall so completely and so fast? Well, the thing is, the destruction didn't just come out of nowhere. Turns out, the seeds of its collapse were sown from within, long before that final blow ever fell. Okay, so you can pretty much pinpoint the moment things started to go sideways. The death of King Ashurbanipal in 631 BC. He was this strong, cultured, but also incredibly ruthless leader who was basically the glue holding this sprawling empire together. Once he was gone, well, the center just couldn't hold. Almost overnight, the empire became dangerously unstable. To the outside world, Assyria still looked like this terrifying superpower. They were known for their brutal kings and their unstoppable army. But, behind the curtain, the reality was just chaos. The empire was literally tearing itself apart with endless civil wars and these bitter fights for the throne, all while the nations it had conquered were getting angrier and angrier. Let's just break this down. First, you've got a series of bloody succession wars between Ashurbanipal's kids that just cripples the government. Then you have ambitious generals, like this guy Sinshum with Ashir, who see their chance and try to grab the throne for themselves. And while all that's going on, the conquered nations just stopped paying the tribute that funded the entire Assyrian war machine. And to top it all off, the whole region was in the grips of a massive 12-and-a-half-year-long mega drought. Food and water were becoming scarce. It was, literally, the perfect storm. And as Assyria was weakening from the inside, its enemies, well, they started to circle. They were like sharks smelling blood in the water. They sensed an opportunity not just for freedom, but for some serious revenge. So two major powers step onto the scene to challenge the Assyrians. First, you got the Neo-Babylonian Empire, led by a former Assyrian general named Nabopolassar. His goal? Super simple. Restore Babylon's independence after more than a century of really harsh Assyrian rule. His main partner in crime was the Median Kingdom, led by King Cyaxares, who basically wanted to smash Assyrian dominance and build his own empire on the rubble. Now, this conflict didn't happen overnight. It ramped up over more than a decade. In 626 BC, Nabopolassar manages to break Babylonia away from Assyria. Huge deal. For the next 10 years, he pushes deeper and deeper into Assyrian territory. But the real turning point, the game changer, came in 614 BC. That's when the Medes sacked the city of Ashur, Assyria's ancient religious capital. It was a massive symbolic blow. It's right there that the Babylonians and Medes make it official. They sign an alliance. And just 2 years later, their combined armies are standing right at the gates of Nineveh itself. This was it. 612 BC, the final showdown. The fate of the world's greatest empire was about to be decided right here at the walls of its magnificent capital, Nineveh. And the attackers were up against a real fortress. I mean, Nineveh wasn't just any city. It was protected by these massive, towering walls and 2 rivers, the Tigris and the Kasr. It was widely considered one of the greatest, most unbreakable cities in the entire world. The siege was brutal and it was long. For 3 grueling months, the Allied armies just battered the city's defenses, fighting for every single inch of ground. The Assyrians fought back fiercely, but the attackers were absolutely relentless. And to really get the kind of hatred that was fueling this attack, you've got to look at this quote from the Book of Nahum, which was written around that time. Nineveh was seen as a bloody city, a place built on lies and plunder. Its enemies weren't just fighting for territory. They were fighting to wipe out what they saw as the center of all evil in their world. This was personal. And then, finally, the walls were breached. The Babylonian Chronicles, which are our main source for what happened, put it pretty simply. They say the attackers inflicted a major defeat upon a great people. That's got to be the understatement of the millennium, right? The impossible had just happened. The consequences were total, and they were immediate. The Assyrian king, a guy named Sin-sharish-kun, died defending his capital. The city was plundered, burned to the ground, and, literally, as the texts say, turned into a ruin heap. The fall of Nineveh wasn't just losing a city. It was the end, the full stop for the Assyrian Empire. A new power, Babylon, was now the boss of Mesopotamia. But hold on, the story doesn't actually end there. Because in the smoking ruins of Nineveh, an absolutely incredible and deeply ironic legacy was just waiting to be discovered. I mean, think about it. Assyria was gone, its palaces were ash, its empire dismantled. The destruction seemed absolute. But was it really? See, tucked away inside Nineveh's palace was a treasure way more valuable than any gold, the Library of Ashurbanipal. And this wasn't just some random pile of scrolls. No, this was the world's first great, systematically organized library, created by the last great king to collect and preserve all the knowledge of Mesopotamia, the whole shebang. Centuries later, archaeologists digging in the ruins unearthed over 30,000 clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform script, an entire civilization's worth of history, literature, medicine, and science, all gathered in one place. And this, right here, this just sums up the whole incredible twist perfectly. On one side, you've got the lion, a symbol of Assyrian imperial might, now destroyed. And on the other, a simple clay tablet, a symbol of knowledge, which somehow survived. And here is the absolute craziest part. How in the world did these fragile clay tablets survive a fire that leveled an entire city? Well, the very act of destruction was also an act of preservation. The incredible heat from the fires that burned Nineveh to the ground actually baked the clay tablets solid, hardening them like pottery and preserving them perfectly for millennia. And what was saved in that fire? Oh, nothing much. Just the foundations of human storytelling and history. We have the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest pieces of literature on Earth. Because of that fire, we have historical chronicles, medical texts, star charts, our main window into the ancient world. As H.G. Wells would later put it, this collection is, quote, the most precious source of historical material in the world. So the ultimate legacy here is this just stunning paradox. The violent, total destruction of the Assyrian Empire was the very thing that guaranteed its voice, its stories, and its knowledge would survive to speak to us today. It really leaves us with one last, fascinating question to think about. The walls of Nineveh are gone. Its armies are dust. But the stories that were baked in its ruins are still with us. So what truly endures in the long run? The power to conquer, or the power of an idea written on a piece of clay?